Picture this. You're at the AP Language and Composition exam. You've annotated your passage, your worksheet is full of notes, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But then you look at all that evidence and think, now what? How do I put this all together into a coherent essay that actually makes sense? But here's the truth. Having lots of evidence means nothing if you can't select the right pieces and develop a coherent argument. Today, we're turning that evidence into a bulletproof thesis that will forecast your essay that will slay. Yes. Hi, I'm Dr. Clay Zuba, inventor of Zubafy, and welcome back to the Rhetorical Analysis Mastery series. In part 1, we learned how to read prompts like kings and queens, how to build rhetorical situations, and how to annotate strategically using my legendary rhetorical analysis organizer. Today in part 2, we're taking those annotations and turning them into focused evidence selections and thesis constructions. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to choose the best evidence and how to craft a thesis that is GOAT level. In part 1, I showed you how to read the passage, annotate, and make notes based on my legendary Rhetorical Analysis Organizer worksheet. That worksheet also helped you identify the author's purpose and build the rhetorical situation. When you get older and take the AP Language and Composition exam, you won't have my worksheet, but you can still brainstorm based on my principles. In brainstorming, your goal is to write down as many ideas as possible. More ideas are better because it gives you more options to choose from later. Even if ideas seem bad, write them down. That gets bad ideas out of your brain and makes room for good ideas. Don't just collect evidence. Start noticing patterns. How do the rhetorical choices build on each other? How do they correspond to rhetorical challenges? Taking note of these kinds of details is your path to earning sophistication points. Now comes the crucial part, selecting your best evidence for your thesis. You have several strategies that you can choose from. Strategy 1, choose based on literary devices you know how to write about. If you're confident analyzing imagery, metaphors, and alliteration, focus on literary devices like these. There's no shame in writing about things that you know how to write about. But if you see lots of imagery in the sample text, but you have no idea how to write about imagery, and you haven't watched my video about writing about imagery, then you should move on to something you're more comfortable writing about. Strategy 2 focuses on prominent uniting moves. Maybe Vasquez Gilliland consistently uses personal narrative, or she repeatedly shifts from problem to solution. Strategy 3 might be to focus on specific feels. But here's a warning. Choosing to organize your essay around ethos, pathos, and logos will probably end up not in an essay, but in a list. You won't have a line of reasoning, so you'll fail. Use this strategy only if you can see how it appeals work as part of an overall connected strategy. Instead of making a list of rhetorical appeals, look for patterns in how the writer uses rhetorical choices to build on one another. This is your sophistication point tip for this section. Notice how Vasquez Gilliland uses personal credibility to set up emotional appeals, which then make her practical advice more convincing. After you've read the prompt and brainstormed, spend 3 to 4 minutes selecting evidence. Don't overthink it. Choose strategies you can write about confidently. Now that you've selected evidence, it's time to write your thesis. Writing the thesis correctly is crucial because it is the answer to the question in the prompt. It can show the AP reader that you have mastered rhetorical analysis principles or signal that you're still struggling. And if an AP reader suspects that you're struggling, they're already inclined to give you a low score even before they've read the body of your essay. An excellent thesis shows your mastery of rhetorical analysis principles, forecasts your analysis for the reader, and is even an opportunity to show your sophistication, leading your AP reader to lean toward awarding you the coveted sophistication point. There are 3 kinds of theses that I'm going to show you here: unacceptable, acceptable, and GOAT theses. Let's start with the unacceptable theses so you won't even consider writing these. Unacceptable example 1. Gilliland uses ethos, pathos, and logos to accomplish her purpose. This is a very bad idea. For one thing, it tells the AP reader that you're going to make a list of things you saw without a line of reasoning. It's vague and it tells us nothing specific about Gilliland's choices and effects. It also doesn't make any logical sense. For the same reason as example 2, Gilliland uses pathos and logos to persuade skeptical urban readers that engaging with nature is both accessible and essential for well-being. This thesis is better because it has a purpose, and the purpose is clear, but it's unacceptable because it mistakes rhetorical appeals for rhetorical choices. The sentence doesn't make logical sense because appeals live in the audience, As I explained to you in part 1, only the speaker can persuade, and they can only persuade using specific choices that attempt to create those appeals. Here are some acceptable theses. Vasquez Gilliland employs vivid imagery, personal anecdotes, and direct address to convince the time-pressed New York readers that connecting with nature is both achievable and transformative. This is acceptable because it identifies specific rhetorical choices, in this case imagery, anecdotes, and direct address, and it shows their intended effect. Here's another acceptable example. Through intimate family narratives, practical problem-solving structure, and sensory-rich language, Vasquez Gilliland transforms the abstract concepts of nature connection into concrete, accessible actions for urban readers. This thesis focuses on broader rhetorical moves rather than just literary devices, showing another valid approach. In other words, you can identify literary devices as rhetorical choices, but if you see rhetorical choices that you want to write about and they aren't a clear literary device, that doesn't mean you can't write about that. You can totally write about them. You just need to call them something, as I showed you how to do in example 2. Next, goat theses. Example 1. This is a goat thesis that uses literary devices. While Vasquez Gilliland acknowledges the practical barriers urban readers face in connecting with nature, she strategically employs vivid imagery, metaphor, and direct address to reframe nature and engagement from an overwhelming lifestyle change into an accessible daily practice. The tension structure shows sophisticated thinking because you're acknowledging complexity while showing how the author navigates that complexity to persuade her readers. Example 2 is a thesis that addresses rhetorical challenges. Recognizing that busy New York Times readers might dismiss nature connection as impractical or even mystical, Vasquez Gilliland strategically balances deeply personal stories with concrete, actionable advice, thereby making indigenous wisdom feel both authentic and immediately applicable to contemporary urban life. This thesis shows you understand the rhetorical situation deeply, and it shows that you can explain how the writer is using specific choices to overcome specific obstacles. Goat theses don't just identify what the author does. They explain why those specific choices work for this specific audience in this specific rhetorical situation. Here's a beautiful thing. Once you know your thesis, you basically have your essay outlined. Your thesis becomes a preview then for your body paragraph structure. Yes! Today, we've taken brainstorming and turned it into strategic evidence selection and thesis construction. You now know the difference between unacceptable, acceptable, and even GOAT-level theses. And yes, you're right, the correct plural is theses. I just don't like to say that, so I always say theses. Sorry. In our next video in this series, part 3, I'll show you how to write rhetorical analysis essays introduction. Now that you've read the prompt, brainstormed, selected evidence, and written your thesis, writing the introduction is your first step in writing your complete essay. As you've been watching this essay, you should drop a comment below and show me some of your practice theses. Show me some acceptable theses, and if you're especially daring, show me a GOAT thesis, and I'll reply to you with an assessment and some feedback. Remember, your thesis doesn't just answer a prompt. It shows your reader that you understand rhetoric at its highest level. Make it count. Thanks for watching Zubafy. Come back for more Zubafy.